Hey, welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and we're going to break down all the new teasers for Spider-Man Brand New Day. We're going to talk about every new tease and reveal for the movie, including set leaks, the teaser videos, Punisher, Hulk, and the multiple villains that we're going to see in the film. But before we get to the teasers, a lot of other news broke over the weekend, so I want to run down everything that we know about Spider-Man Brand New Day so far.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so you guys remember Spider-Man No Way Home ended with Doctor Strange casting a spell that meant that everybody in the world forgot Peter Parker existed, but they still remember Spider-Man. So this ended the movie on a classic Spider-Man tragedy with his girlfriend and best friend not remembering who Peter Parker was. But the last few seconds of the movie gave us an amazing tease. Spider-Man wearing a cloth suit swinging through the skyscrapers of New York, and that got me so excited for Spider-Man 4.
Well, what's the big deal? We've seen Spider-Man do that lots of times.
Yeah, but this few seconds was loaded with symbolism. So the first 5 Spider-Man films were very typical Spider-Man stories set in New York, showing him as a superhero lifted straight from the current comic books. So the Tom Holland trilogy was innovative because it gave us a high school age Peter Parker, played by an actual teenager. We got to see Peter in Queens or in other countries or working with these past versions of himself. And frankly, after 5 straight movies of the same setting, this was a welcome change. Spider-Man stories don't have to take place in New York. Hell, I'd watch a Spider-Man story set in space.
Please don't put your eggs in me!
But those 3 Tom Holland movies also build up a desire for me to see Tom Holland be a regular Spider-Man in New York. And in every movie, he was also in a wired-up tech suit that made him feel like Iron Man Jr.
Hey Karen, what else can this suit do? What?
So the cloth suit promised us that we would have a bare-bones Spider-Man back to basics fighting street-level threats. Now, for a while, it seemed like this movie would get sucked up into the Multiverse saga, but I'm going to talk about all that drama a little bit later on.
All right, so what do we know about this one?
All right, so for Spider-Man Brand New Day, we know that it's directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi, and was at one point going to be the director for the Kang Dynasty. The movie's title, Brand New Day, is taken from the comics. After Mephisto erased Peter and Mary Jane's marriage from their memories in an event called One More Day, a fresh story called Brand New Day focused on the life of Peter Parker post-marriage. Just like this movie is about Peter when he's trying to rebuild his life after his breakup with his MJ. We even see at the end of the movie that he was going for his high school equivalency exam, and maybe in this film he'll even be going to college. Now, Tom Holland recently said that No Way Home ended on a cliffhanger, and that was going to be addressed in this movie. I mean, I don't know that I would call the ending a cliffhanger, just that he was moving on. But I think Ned and MJ are going to remember Peter again, because we know that Zendaya and Jake Batalon are going to be returning for their roles. But even if they do return, Peter has an entire support network that is missing now. Aunt May died. Happy Hogan doesn't remember him. And as far as we know, all of those Edith drones were seized and are being used by the Department of Damage Control to control superheroes, just like we saw in the show Ms. Marvel. So in this movie, we're going to see Peter have to face up against the Hulk with no Stark tech to help him.
Hey, guess what, person? It's my birthday.
No way! How old are you?
I am 1,000 years old.
Buddy, I don't think you're 1,000.
I am too. I'll Google myself and show you. Jeez.
What is it?
This creepy website knows everything about me. Where I live, my phone number, my real name.
Well, I got good news for you, man. If you go on a website and you see that they have listed your personal information, then you can actually take care of it with the custom removals feature from Incogni. They're the sponsor of this video. In fact, I will even add you to my family plan.
Thanks, person. This is the best birthday ever.
So Incogni is one of my all-time favorite sponsors that we work with on this channel. If you're like most people, you probably get a lot of spam calls and emails. Like a year ago, I was researching a very serious medical problem in my family, and the next thing you know, I was getting emails and spam calls about my family's personal medical history. This is because the internet is filled with shady people who pay big money for access to your private data. Then these companies sell your data to giant firms called data brokers, and then they sell your information to other advertisers.
So you don't get those calls anymore?
Very rarely, because I signed up for Incogni. Incogni is by far one of the best products we talk about on the channel. This is the app that they don't want you to know about, and you can sign up right now with our link below using code ScreenCrush to get an exclusive 60% off an Incogni plan. Incogni.com/ScreenCrush. So far, Incogni has found 836 companies that were selling my sensitive information. We're talking search history, financial details, health history, and they were selling this info to the highest bidder. Incogni even tells you the dangers associated with the companies, like data leaks, spam calls, identity theft, and stalking. But Incogni then contacts those companies on your behalf, and they legally have to remove your information. So far, Incogni has completed 767 removal requests on my behalf, so my personal information is now being suppressed. In fact, Doug, let's sign up for the new Incogni Family Unlimited plan, and then you'll be on my account. And that's easy. No more spam.
Hooray!
And that family plan includes the custom removal feature where you can point to any website where you see your personal information, and one of Incogni's privacy agents will take care of the rest for you. So I highly recommend giving Incogni a try. Use my code ScreenCrush with the link below to get an exclusive deal, 60% off an Incogni plan. It's a great deal you don't want to miss. Now, back to what I was saying. Like I said, Peter has pretty much severed all ties with all the other characters in the MCU. And because the film rights are owned by Sony, we haven't seen him pop up in any of the New York-centric movies or shows like Thunderbolts or Daredevil. Although he did get a cheeky mention in Born Again.
Or a man who dresses in a spider outfit.
Now, Daredevil Born Again's first season ended with Wilson Fisk, now the mayor of New York, outlawing vigilantes. So in a perfect world, this movie would be about that story, the police hunting down Spider-Man, but that's not likely to happen.
But why not?
Complicated film and TV movie rights, but also Brand New Day releases in July 2026, and Daredevil Born Again is set to be released in March 2026. So by the time this movie comes out, Wilson Fisk might not even be the mayor anymore, and Vincent D'Onofrio has said that he is not in the movie because of complicated rights issues. But leaker My Time to Shine Hello has said that Kingpin is hinted at in the movie. So that big Daredevil and Spider-Man crossover movie we all hoped for is probably not going to happen yet. But Peter is going to meet Jon Bernthal's The Punisher with a huge twist that we're going to talk about in just a bit. And there are other confirmed cast members. Sadie Sink is in the movie in an undisclosed role. Now, I think it's possible she is playing Felicia Hardy, the villain turned hero called the Black Cat and love interest to Peter in the comics. Now, a lot of people have fan cast her as Mayday Parker, who is the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane from another universe. And you know what? If Tobey Maguire does pop up in this movie, it could be that she is playing Spider-Girl. But I think it makes more sense for her to play the Black Cat because this movie is apparently introducing several villains. Actor Michael Mando confirmed on Instagram that he was going to return as Mac Gargan, as teased in Homecoming.
It's not on you. It's on our little spider friend.
Now, in the comics, Gargan becomes a supervillain called the Scorpion after J. Jonah Jameson paid him to get a super suit and then go off and capture Spider-Man. And you know, in the movies, J. Jonah Jameson has a vendetta against Spider-Man, so that plot line could very easily carry over to the big screen. But in this recent set photo on the side of this tank, we see the symbol of a demon, which no, is not a symbol of Mephisto.
Not the beast!
This is a symbol of the Inner Demon Gang, which is run by the villain Mr. Negative.
Who's that?
Well, basically, he's a villain that can touch you and bring out all of your most negative impulses. Now, he's a newer villain who played a big part in the recent Spider-Man games. Now, because of the mind control aspect of his powers, I wonder if he's going to control hordes of New Yorkers, including MJ and Ned, but this could somehow restore their memories. But we also know that Mark Ruffalo is returning in this movie to play the Hulk, which, hey, think about it. Spider-Man and the Hulk never met.
There's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man?
In Homecoming, we did see Bruce Banner's portrait with other great scientific minds. And the last time we saw Bruce Banner, he did have a handle on the Hulk, and he actually worked out a way to sometimes be human.
I made this little device which keeps me in human form.
Actually, I take that back. The last time we saw him was introducing his kid to a family barbecue. So I'm wondering if Mr. Negative could also touch Bruce Banner and then unleash the Rage Hulk that we all know and love. And you know what? Good. I'm tired of Smart Hulk. I mean, don't get me wrong. Smart Hulk is kind of funny.
Time travel!
And you know, we had Smart Hulk in the comics for years during a great run by the late great Peter David. But I think the character is most interesting when he is this like tragic Jekyll and Hyde figure. Also, Liza Colin-Zayas, who plays Tina in The Bear, is also confirmed to be in this cast, but we don't know who she's playing. Now, despite Kevin Feige saying they're not allowed to do a live-action Miles Morales, many fans have pointed out that Colin-Zayas is Puerto Rican and could definitely play a live-action Rio Morales. I have some theories on how Sony could be building up to a Miles Morales Tom Holland crossover that I'll talk about a bit later. But the best casting in the movie is Jon Bernthal returning as the Punisher. Now, the Punisher is a street-level anti-hero who like straight up murders criminals in the comics. He actually debuted though as a Spider-Man villain who was manipulated to hunt down Spider-Man before he spun off into multiple comics of his own. Now, obviously the character's had a few movies, but he really shined when they introduced him in the Netflix Daredevil show. He was an antagonist for Matt Murdock and really pushed the boundaries of Daredevil's no-kill morality. And he recently returned in Daredevil Born Again, helping Matt against the Kingpin in the final episode. Now, the season ended with him escaping from the Kingpin's cells, and we know there is going to be an ultra-violent TV special releasing on Disney Plus, hopefully this year. But I have always wanted to see this version of the ultra-violent silent Frank Castle, the guy who cut through 30 dudes in a cell block. I want to see this guy team up with the dude who was horrified by the instant kill setting.
No, I don't want to kill anybody.
Leaker Daniel RPK has said that this film will be darker than John Watts' home films. So maybe the Punisher's one-man war on crime is seen on screen and Peter has to deal with the fallout. And My Time to Shine Hello, another reliable leaker, has said that Frank Castle would be getting a quote major upgrade to go up against the Hulk. Now, this could mean that he'll get some kind of Iron Man suit or something like that, but I doubt it. I think it's more likely that Peter is going to somehow augment his weaponry. But also remember, the first Tom Holland movie was about the proliferation of the Chitauri tech left over from the Avengers. A villain named the Tinkerer was creating weapons for the Vulture and the Shocker, who is another low-grade villain from the comics. So the other villains rumored to appear could also be minor Spider-Man villains like Boomerang or the Beetle, who are buying weapons from the Tinkerer. This could also be where the Punisher gets his new weapons. So I think Peter would see these people running around with advanced weaponry and see this as his responsibility to keep these weapons off the streets since Mr. Stark is no longer around. And this would also fit in well with the Netflix shows. In Luke Cage, we saw Chitauri tech was used to create something called a Judas bullet that could actually pierce Luke Cage's skin. And maybe, under Mayor Fisk, there aren't enough superheroes to curb all this supervillain activity, especially when you have villains like Mr. Negative manipulating the populace and driving them into a frenzy. So that takes us to these teasers. Let's start with the one that was released on Spider-Man Day. It's just an extreme close-up of the new suit, highlighting its fibers so we can see that it is indeed made of cloth. Now, it does feature raised webbing, just like the suits in the first 5 Spider-Man films. So this is telling us that, yes, this Spider-Man movie will be more in line with everything we've seen before, and Michael Giacchino's terrific Spider-Man theme plays just as a few notes on the piano. So the theme is being stripped down to a single instrument without the greater orchestration. Much like Peter, who has no supersuit, this is the theme completely stripped down. Peter is no longer Iron Man Jr. with all those extra layers of protection. He is just a guy in a cloth suit facing off against the strongest Avenger, the Hulk, which is why I think this movie is going to end with a surprise introduction of the Venom symbiote, but more on that later on. So that was the Friday tease. Then on Saturday, we got an even better teaser that has some extremely cool hidden details. It opens on a dark screen as the soundstage door opens. Now, this probably reminds you guys of the chairs. Remember when they announced the cast for Avengers Doomsday, they brought out the actors' chairs onto a soundstage and revealed a new one every 15 minutes. It was somehow the most exciting and most boring day of my life all at once. It was like watching soccer.
Fake sport, man. You got to tackle something.
But Tom Holland's chair was conspicuously absent, and we know from the Marvel deal with Sony that the character has to appear in at least one Marvel Studios film. So maybe that means he'll appear in Avengers Secret Wars and not Doomsday. But the point is, I like how this teaser is a companion piece to the chairs. While all the other heroes were over on this stage, Spider-Man is just over on this one by his lonesome. And that's exactly how it is in the comics. I mean, Spider-Man by his nature is a loner. He turned down Avengers membership for 40 years, and he never belonged to a team, except when he wanted to join the Fantastic Four Amazing Spider-Man issue 1, but that was for money. I mean, yes, and he also was the star of a book called Marvel Team Up, but those were always 1 or 2 issue arcs. Spider-Man is a loner, and in these movies, no other heroes even know who he is. He's just that bug guy that they went to space with, and that weirdo at the Daily Bugle is always yelling about him for some reason.
Well, if he were a hero, he'd unmask himself and tell us who he really is. Because only a coward conceals his identity.
Now, without Peter's personal connection to Tony Stark, he doesn't really have an in with any of these heroes except Doctor Strange. And even then, that's because Strange is in New York with a giant building with a very distinct skylight. So if Peter Parker was in trouble, he wouldn't even be able to text an Avenger, let alone ask to join the team. I'm telling you all this so you understand that in this movie, when Spider-Man's in trouble, he is going to have no help. He's going to have no armor and be completely exposed to harm. So then we see Holland jumping up and down to get his blood pumping. Remember, he was a dancer and gymnast before he was cast in this role, so his physicality has always made him perfect for this part. Now, as the camera pushes in, notice we can see the dolly tracks on the ground and somebody says, and then we get our first look at this total stranger wearing a Spider-Man costume.
Who the f is this?
Yeah, who the heck even is this guy anyways?
No idea. He says,
We ready?
second before running off to film. Now, he's talking to the director there, but also to us. Are we ready to see this movie? So a few things to note. One, it is crazy to see how much Tom Holland has grown over the years. He was such a baby-faced kid in Civil War, and now he is a man, full grown. And yep, that suit is totally cloth. And notice that his cloth suit features a much larger spider logo, like it was in the Raimi movies and in the more recent comics. And I think all of this, with the cloth suit and Spider-Man just directly in our faces showing his camera and then taking pictures with paparazzi, I think that just is there to show us that this Spider-Man is more grounded. He's around the people. He is much more like the Spider-Man in the Sam Raimi films. And it could also be that after Peter met his counterparts from other universes, he said, actually, those cloth suits are pretty great, and so they inspired the raised webbing on his new threads. And notice the only piece of tech here that's conspicuous are these web shooters that are outside of his suit. Now, this is a very small piece of tech and are probably the only thing Peter could actually afford to make for himself. In the comics, he's always having to raise money to buy more web fluid, and I think we might see something similar in this movie. Like in past films, the web shooters have been hidden away by his suit, but here, again, he is more exposed and vulnerable. Also, this visual does call to mind the terrible Spider-Man live-action shows in the 70s and that Japanese Spider-Man show, where he had web shooters on the outside of his wrists. Now, they also decided to film the first day of shooting in broad daylight outside and just let fans and paparazzi take as many photos as they wanted. I mean, here's this kid dressed as Spider-Man taking his picture with Tom Holland dressed as Spider-Man. Again, this is showing us that this is a Spider-Man who is on the street and among the people, a lot more in line with the Spider-Man we saw in the first 5 films.
Hey, you guys. No playing in the streets.
Yes, Mr. Spider-Man.
See ya.
And Tom Holland also shared these set photos of Spider-Man on top of a tank. Now, at first I thought this tank could be part of the vigilante crackdown on the city, you know, from Mayor Fisk's anti-vigilante task force. Or maybe I thought these tanks could have been sent in to subdue the Hulk, but Peter is trying to stop them from harming Dr. Banner. I should also note these are similar to the tanks in the Spider-Man PlayStation game that are sent in when martial law is declared in the city. But other set photos here show that the tank is stamped with the symbol of the Inner Demon Gang, implying that these tanks are actually controlled by the forces of Mr. Negative. Maybe he's used his powers to take control of the government, or his forces have seized control of this weaponry. And let's go back to the image of Spider-Man taking a selfie with that kid. Notice that the suit has larger eyes than what we have seen in the past, which are more in line with the embellishments that Todd McFarlane added in the comic. Now, as much as I love the cloth suit, I do want to briefly say RIP to the eyes of the tech suit. I loved those eyes because they would actually move, which would show Peter emoting. And this was a great mimic of how his eyes sometimes move in the comics. Can't do that with a cloth suit. But I do want to say these new lenses do have these ridges around them. So it is possible that Peter lifted those lenses from the tech suit and then adapted them into his new cloth suit. So maybe he'll still be able to use his eyes to emote in this movie. Now, in addition to everything we learned from these teasers and set photos, I'm also excited for what we don't know. I mean, guys, imagine what they're not showing us if we're getting all this information on the first day of filming. That's one of the reasons I think this movie is setting up Tom Holland in the Venom suit and a possible crossover with the animated Spider-Verse movies. You know, for a while, I thought Sony was making a huge mistake with this movie.
What do you mean?
Well, there were reports that Marvel wanted this street-level movie, but Sony wanted another multiversal crossover film with Tobey and Andrew. After all, No Way Home made $1 billion, and the animated Spider-Verse films are centered in the multiverse. So it looks like Marvel won this fight, but I still think this movie is going to be a huge step forward for Secret Wars, and that film could bring Miles Morales into the MCU. Like, we've spent this video talking about how vulnerable Peter is, which is the perfect reason for him wanting a new upgraded suit like he used to have. But without access to expensive advanced technology, I think he would be more open to using something like the alien suit. Now, in the comics, Peter actually found that Venom symbiote during the original Secret Wars, which I should note is one of the Russo brothers' all-time favorite comics. So I could see Peter Parker getting absolutely beat to shit in this movie and nearly dying. But then in Secret Wars, he will find and use that alien suit. Finally, he will have that suit upgrade that he's been wanting for years. And because Secret Wars is a multiversal movie, Peter #2 could warn him about, hey, that Venom goo is dangerous based on my own experience.
I fought an alien made out of black goo once.
And if this new trilogy is going to be darker, maybe that means that Peter is darker and more open to listening to the temptation of the suit. And that evil voice ringing in his ear could be enhanced by the negative thought powers of Mr. Negative. I think this is all going to lead to Tom Holland wearing the black alien suit for an entire movie that will then spin off into a new Venom based in the MCU.
Why do you think that?
Well, Sony appears to be wrapping up its Something to Do with Spider-Man I Think universe. Madam Web and Kraven and Morbius all went nowhere. They're not going to lead into a big Sinister Six movie where they fight Null. Basically, the movies were panned by critics and fans hated them. Even Tom Hardy is no longer going to play Venom. They wrapped up that trilogy too. And I think the reason Sony did that was because they wanted a way to spin off that Venom IP into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So my thought process is, in Brand New Day, Spider-Man gets the living crap kicked out of him. He finds the black suit in Secret Wars. He's warned about it, doesn't listen to the warning. Then we get another Spider-Man film where Peter is just listening to this negative energy from this black symbiote suit. He gets rid of it, just like in the comics and in Spider-Man 3. And then that suit attaches itself to Eddie Brock, who can then be the villain in that movie and spin off into a new Sony franchise. But that would mean that the Venom symbiote would be loose in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So just like in the comics, it could attach itself to anybody. It could attach itself to the Punisher, to Daredevil, hell, maybe even to Thor.
That'd be cool.
Right? But also, it's the Multiverse saga, so if they are going to be bringing in other Spider-Men, it seems like the perfect opportunity for Tom Holland to meet Miles Morales from the Spider-Verse movies. I mean, I know one's animated and one's in live action, but we saw a live action Donald Glover in Across the Spider-Verse.
Hey.
And in the 2015 Secret Wars, Miles' universe basically combined with the 616 universe. So maybe Sony is planning on launching dual Spider-Man franchises in live action that are both kind of set in the MCU. Since spinning off non-Spider-Man characters doesn't work for them, maybe this is what they're going to build up to. This could even lead to a movie where Peter is being controlled by the black suit and Miles has to stop him. Spider-Man versus Spider-Man. So would you guys like to see that movie? Well, what do you think about all these new teases? Do you think it's too complicated? Did you want to see Tobey and Andrew back, or are you pumped for a street-level Spider-Man movie? And is Venom gonna finally come into this universe in this film? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or at me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, or on our free-to-join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.